Hey friends, Steve Guttenberg here. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show. This is our first on location, on the street interview with Kevin. You remember Kevin? He's done 2 previous interviews. The last one was like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin has made a lot of changes since then. And the thing that he said that made me want to do this video is he talked about mixing and matching different amps with different preamps and different speakers, which is kind of like what I do a lot of the time. But it's really interesting to do that because you think you know this amplifier or this speaker, but then when you hear it in a different combination, it changes everything. Right?
That's exactly right, no doubt about it.
So, and I think that's really important because when people say, you know, what does a first watt J2 sound like? Well, it depends on the speaker it's hooked up to and the preamp and the rest of the system because it's all part of a system. You can't hear a preamp or a power amp all by itself. It has to be connected to everything else. Kevin was explaining to me how he's going through these mixing and matching scenarios, and I thought that would be a great video. So,
Here we are.
here we are.
Good enough, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, as Steve said, if any of you have seen my video, especially the one from March of 2019, where we described my audiophile journey, you know, from really beginning with smaller, less expensive gear and moving up, changing, mix and match, things like that. And you know, I stuck with those with that gear that I described in the earlier videos in 2019 until, you know, about the 4th quarter of the year when I made some more changes. In particular, I traded the first watt SID 3 amplifier that I had. I bought that from a shop in Nevada called Reno Hi-Fi. It's one of the larger PASS Labs distributors in the world. I think they are actually the largest in the United States. I bought the SID 3 from them a year or so earlier. They had some demos on hand, so I was able to trade in and get pretty much full value back for my SID 3, which I wasn't disappointed in, obviously. That amp's not going to lose its value ever, I don't think. But I was able to trade that in for 2 pieces of PASS gear, the 150.8 power amplifier and the XP10 preamplifier. Both of these amplifiers were demos at pretty good prices. They were around the Thanksgiving, Black Friday time of year. Mm-hmm. So I was able to really get some fair prices, I think, for those demos. I was kind of sad to say goodbye to the SID 3. You know, I really liked it, but it just didn't give me enough difference in sound for some of the other gear that I had at that time. So I brought that in, played that gear setup with the Zoo Omen that I had then, and also cycling in the Klipsch Heresy 3s, which were described in the earlier videos as well. Which obviously there's lots of differences, and we'll talk more about the different differences that I experienced from these speakers. Then, getting further into the end of the year, I saw some used speakers around Christmas time from Sky-Fi Audio, a really quality shop in New Jersey that specializes in vintage gear. Steve knows them very well. He's done some videos from there. Other people have as well. I found some ProAc Response 2.5 speakers that they had back from the day that they had for sale there, and I bought those right around Christmas time. And I suggest anybody who wants to read about a powerful, interesting, floor-standing speaker, go read up on the ProAc 2.5s. I mean, they've got a ported bass, they had a bass port in the back that is really unbelievable. And the different reviewers describe that. I had that in the rig with the PASS equipment and all my other downstream components for a few months. But I was finding in my room that the bass, which was remarkable for that speaker, there were certain parts of our room where you could not sit comfortably with these speakers connected and playing. My wife and our friends, there were parts of our room, and unfortunately we're now on location outside. We're not in my apartment, so I can't really point it out. But there were sofa places to sit where nobody wanted to sit there when the music was at any type of volume level because it was just too much, quite frankly. So I said, well, I'm not really able to do any type of room conditioning or for this and try to figure out what's going on. So I went back on the Sky-Fi Audio and I found another set of speakers that I was really keen to learn more about. They're the KEF Reference R107s. These go back to the early 1990s. They're three-way speakers. They stand about 4 feet tall. They've got individual tweeter and mid-range compartments. And then they've got a bass cavity woofer setup with dual woofers, one pointing up and one pointing down, with openings actually at the top of the bass where the bass comes out. I'd never heard these before, but I suggest people go find these old stereophile reviews of the speaker. It was, I think it was like about a $4,000 or $5,000 speaker back in the day. These came into my apartment. They're 100 pounds a piece. Came in, hooked them up with the past equipment, and after a few weeks of listening to them, we just came to the conclusion that those speakers we had really sounded as good for as many types of music in our room than these particular speakers. It's been a great experience with those speakers. And so what I started to do then is I said, hey, I've got some fun stuff here. You know, I own some really good things, and I'm able to mix and match. You know, as we talked about from the earlier videos, I have another preamp. I have a Rogue RP1. So I said, well, let's put the RP1 in with the past 150.8 power amp. It changed things. That's a tube preamplifier. The RP1 also gives me a little bit better connectivity than the XP10 did, the past XP10 preamp. It's got more inputs in the back. It has a dedicated output connections for my headphone amplifier, my Blue Fireflies. You maybe remember we talked about those at the time. Then I said, well, okay, well, let's move the KEFs out, bring in the Zooma to see how this signs together. Let's then bring in the Klipsch Heresy 3s and see how that sounds. And I tell you what, it's really interesting, and this is really where I'm having the most fun right now, is the mix and match of amplifiers, preamplifiers. I have another main amplifier you may remember. I have the Rogue Stereo 100, a 100 watt per channel tube amplifier. The past, obviously, the 150.8 is full solid state. Lots of differences between the different amplifiers, preamplifiers, speakers, and what's really becoming apparent is that for different types of music, different pairing combinations of all this gear make a lot of difference. If I want to rock out with some, fast electric guitar, lots of drums, my favorite is the Klipsch Heresies for that. I mean, that's just a renegade little speaker. It's just a lot of fun to play with and play it loud. Trying to play that type of music with the KEF R107s, it just doesn't go up to the volume level that I can get from the Klipsch. Differences, obviously, too, with the amps and things coming into this. If I want, like I said, the more all-rounded three-way sound, which kind of alleviates the problems in my room, well, then I'll have the KEFs hooked up. I really am finding that my favorite for all-around music, especially if I'm not keen at that time to play loud rock and roll music, is the Rogue Stereo 100 power amplifier, the PASS XP10 preamplifier, and the Reference R107 three-way speakers. I have gotten some other new equipment lately. My CD player that I had before, it was a Yamaha unit. It had the tray that came in and out. It was just sticking too much. It became a real nuisance to me. So around my birthday, I always talk about my birthdays, but my birthday back in March, I treated myself to an Audiolab 6000 CDT transport, which I have connected to my Mytek Brooklyn DAC. And I've been buying music, and something that I've really gotten keen on, and there, are these JVC XRCD that are out there. They're not cheap, and there's not a lot of them out there. There's not a huge selection for sale, at least. I've been on a Lucid Disc and bought 6 or 8 of these things. And with the transport, with everything else I have, I'm really enjoying the sound of this XRCD. It's I confess I didn't really know about this until recently. You know, I guess I wasn't as much of an audiophile in past years that I have become later on. And it's something else I just found out about it and said, hey, you know, I see these things are for sale. Why not buy a few of them and see if they're really that much different than all the other CDs that I have? And from what I've heard so far, they really are remarkably different in just a higher quality digital sound than what I've heard before.
But Kevin, you stream a lot of music.
I do.
Right? So do you think there's a big difference in the sound between streaming versus CDs?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's some songs that I've gotten that are on these XRCDs that I've played through my changer, through the system, that I've also played from Tidal or from Qobuz. And to my ears, the XRCDs sound a little bit more powerful. And they're just giving out more of a signal that I like. And, you know, my listening is easily 90% streaming, you know, nowadays. My vinyl setup I'm happy with. It's the Pioneer PLX 1000. I have got a new Technica movie magnet cartridge on that I'm really happy with. Using the phono stage on the RP1, the Rogue RP1, which has gotten pretty good reviews from different people, using that for the phono stage connecting into the XP10 preamplifier. So in answer to your question, yes, I've done the comparisons on some songs. I'm going to do more of that because I just got, last week I got 4 new XRCDs that just came in. I've listened to them each once through. Now I'm going to, be taking more time to listen to them in more detail. And it's pretty easy with the changing of the connection points, if you will, on the Brooklyn DAC. It's just a button push and then a dial change, and I could change between the signal coming from my my streaming device, the Arlic Aries G1, or from the CD transport. So it's really a very easy thing to change back and forth with the Brooklyn DAC to do that. So that's something I'm really having fun with what I have at this point. I went through a phase where I was just changing, buying things like that. The last thing of major thing I bought was obviously that CD transport. Something else that I'm doing that's very interesting. You may remember if you saw some of the earlier videos. I live in a 1,150 square foot apartment flat here in Brooklyn. In that apartment, I have my main rig, which I've described for you, but also I have my home entertainment system, which is right now I'm using the Klipsch Heresy 3s as the main speakers of my home entertainment system, being driven by an Onkyo AV receiver. But also now, I've got a second audio rig there with separate speaker wires so I can change them in and out. That's the Mytek Reference RM10, the tube amplifier, the 35 watt per channel tube amplifier. I bought a small Schiit preamplifier, the Saga Plus, so I could use that for the preamplifier for this second rig. I also bought the Schiit Modi, which is a small DAC, obviously, and then for the sources of music that I have connected to the Logitech Squeezebox Touch, which I stream in through the Logitech into the Schiit Modi and then into the preamp, obviously. We really enjoy listening to internet radio, different things from around the world. That Squeezebox is something I neglected to mention on my earlier video, and I really regretted that because when we moved back from Asia in 2011, that's really the first thing that I bought was the Logitech.
Where did you live in Asia?
We lived in Singapore for 3.5 years.
Wow.
If you recall from the first video when I described the audiophile journey I had, it started in 2011, 2012 when we moved back from Asia. So, but that Squeezebox was really the first thing I bought. I was just listening to it through some very basic gear at that point, but just the ability to bring in, internet radio stations, and it does other things too through that. It's been really nice. I'm also moving speakers. I haven't put the KEFs on the entertainment system to use with the Mytek Reference, but I kind of cycle between the Omens and the Klipsch over there to hear. Well, I want to hear my zoos with my Mytek Reference amplifiers and that gear. And plus, that rig is on the short wall. The home entertainment system's over there. It's probably about 6 or 7 feet from our sofa, facing the television and that rig. The Klipsch speakers are on the ground, on the right and the left. It's really a nice space, shortened space to listen to music, as opposed to the main rig, which faces into the long part of the rooms.
So in the main music system, you're much further away from the speakers,
Definitely,
right?
definitely.
15 feet? Is it that
I
far?
don't know, 15, 10 to maybe 12 feet from the front of the speakers to my chair. Sometimes I've got a desk chair on wheels that I wheel in a little bit closer to get more near field sound on my main rig. But there's a lot of fun to be had, let me tell you, doing that, and I'm really enjoying myself. Plus, it doesn't show, but I'm able to get some exercise and build up my muscles moving all these speakers about and things like that. It's just a real pleasure to do that with my system, and also now that I'm working from home, I turn the stereo on first thing in the morning after we're both up and about, and it's on all day now. There's music going all day long, because I'm home all the time now, and lots of times it's just in background while I'm doing my business. A song will come on every once in a while that I want to pay more attention to, so I'll crank it up a little bit. And then after working hours, the volume goes up, and we get ready for dinner and for our evening and stuff like that. But
So I got to ask you a tough question.
sure.
You got all this stuff, but if you had to pare it down to one system,
Yeah, that's a
What would
really
you do?
great question, and I think if I had to pare it down, and there's different criteria, I'll pare it down based on what my most enjoyable sound is for me,
okay.
and then we can maybe talk about what's more convenient space-wise and things like this.
Yeah.
What looks the best,
Okay.
So I think my best system right now is the Rogue. My favorite system right now is the Rogue Stereo 100 amplifier, the Pass XP10 preamplifier. Obviously, the only DAC I have in my main system is the Brooklyn DAC. My CD transport, obviously, my vinyl setup like we described.
So, wait, what's the speakers for this?
The speakers are the KEF
For
R107.
this system.
It is. I mean, even though the zoos and the Klipsch have some types of music that they really excel at, I think for all-around music listening and enjoyment in our apartment, the KEFs are the ones to keep. They're certainly not the most attractive speaker on the planet. We could talk all day about my wife's feeling about those speakers, and they're homely as hell. It looks like it looks like a big fat robot.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, they're strange looking. You'll see when you put the pictures up. I think if I was to really scale down space-wise, and want to just have a good quality small system, it would be the Mytek Reference RM10. That little shit saga plus preamplifier I'm very happy with. I keep the Manhattan DAC, the Brooklyn DAC. I don't know, the source components going into that would vary, obviously. But,
And the speakers?
and the speakers in that setup, I keep the Klipsch.
The Klipsch.
The Klipsch, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If I had to pick,
Yeah. Well, luckily you don't have to.
I don't have to
It's just
pick,
a
and
mental
I can
exercise.
mix and match and do different things, and it's really a fun part of this whole audiophile world we're in now, and I realize how fortunate I am to be able to afford this stuff and have a good patient wife who lets me do what I want when it comes to these things.
So will your patient wife step into the scene? This is your big chance.
Here I am.
All right.
Ready for my close-up,
Come
Mr.
up on
DeMille.
the
Yeah.
up on the
I
stand.
understand.
Yeah, she's really
Mr. and Mrs.
incognito.
Audiophile.
And you may recall we did a video together in June of last year where we talked about the you know, the wife of the audiophiliac, and but this is my wife Sarah, and we're coping pretty well with all the different gear, aren't we, Sarah?
I'd like to say for the record that the most all-around best sounding speakers are ugly as hell.
Oh, well, it kind of goes.
Yeah,
that
they
way, of
are
course.
fun.
They
They
are
ugly,
really homely.
but, you know, it's they are nice sounding, and actually, I get quite a few sound compliments from Sarah in those.
Yeah.
You like the Klipsch for the rock and roll music. We did comment about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, you know what looks the best doesn't sound the best, and
Yeah,
vice
like
versa.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
That,
it's
maybe
a
that's
lot.
why you took me.
It's a lot easier to maneuver around the
Yeah.
ones that are in the bedroom up against the wall than,
Yeah,
than the ugly
The
ones.
zoos now are disconnected and stored in our bed.
So you guys might not know that my wife, who is referred to as Mrs. Audiophilia, may, keyword here is may, actually do an entire episode
Ah.
as a guest.
There you go.
It's the contracts still haven't been
No,
signed.
no
the
signed
lawyers still
contracts.
haven't finished the
Her
details.
Yeah.
agent hasn't signed
No,
off.
The agent hasn't.
Her
It's not all
manager's
nailed
looking
down.
for a little more.
She's looking for more. She has certain demands.
And she probably has
Blue
control.
Emerald.
She probably controls the input too, right?
Yeah, a lot.
The subject matter.
Behind the scenes things. Yeah. So we're going to thank my guests today, Kevin and Sarah. And this is the Audiophiliac Daily Show coming up right now for 4 or 5 days a week. Hope you come back often. Please subscribe. Please share. Thumbs up. All that social media stuff. And I hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.